Asian, they're just like very kind of traditionally, we're going to submit, especially when they're our source of housing and everything. So it became, where I felt like, well, I'm just going to get in trouble anyway. And so what she told me was, you probably felt like your mom, as much as she loved you and wanted to, she didn't feel that she could stick up for you because your housing and your livelihood was dependent on that.
Before we dive into today's content, I just want to take a moment to thank everyone who's already subscribed to this channel. Your support makes a real difference, helping us share important stories that often go unheard. For the 97% of you who haven't subscribed yet, make sure to hit that subscribe button. Your subscription helps this channel grow and reach more people, all thanks to the YouTube algorithm. This allows us to spread more awareness about what's really going on in the streets of America. And don't forget to like, share, and leave a comment with your thoughts. If there's anything you'd like to see or anywhere I can improve the quality of this video, drop a comment down below. And once again, thank you so much for your support. Now let's go ahead and get started. All right. So may I have your age and your name?
I'm Karen, I'm 46.
46. And Karen, if you don't mind me asking, are you unhoused at the moment?
Yes. We stay here in the RV park here at the, for now.
And how long have you been living over here at Wood Street?
I've been here just over 2 years.
2 years. Okay. And then what got you in this situation, if you don't mind me asking?
It probably started about maybe around 2012. I was married for 15 years, and then I got divorced. And my ex-husband was just kind of really cruel about the whole thing. So he took full custody of my daughter for no real reason except things he lied about, unfortunately. But he was able to take her, and it just kind of spiraled into a kind of depression and whatnot. And so I ended up taking time off from work, and I just haven't even gone back at the time.
Yeah. And because of that, did you try to go back?
I haven't, because I have my anxiety. I have really bad anxiety on top of that, and so that kind of got a lot worse with the whole the divorce and then losing custody of my daughter, and I didn't have any contact with her for a while, and so it kind of just became a little bit of a mental health crisis. Yeah. And it's just it's weird to say that because I feel like when I'm speaking with people, I'm super functional, but or it seems like I would be super functional, but it's hard to just kind of overcome that. So I'm kind of working on that, through different avenues. And
because of that, I know when you take a loss, it takes a long time until you can finally be mentally prepared, but emotionally as well. Right. So that's something that's kind of hindering you from getting to that part.
Right.
Okay. And what have you been doing so far since these 2 years?
Well, since I moved here, I've got 3 dogs that I'm, trying to keep out of trouble over here. And it's just survival, really. It's kind of a struggle. Either people are constantly, you have people just taking your belongings, or you're constantly just trying to keep, the things you need available. But other than that, I spend time in a way kind of volunteer, just helping other people out, doing things and trying to stay busy. So.
And what's the hardest thing about being unhoused, if you don't mind me asking?
Everything, just your day-to-day things that were so routine and simple before are so tedious now. Because here at the park, we don't necessarily have running water to the RVs, so we have the shower building, and that's pretty much where any of your hot water would come from. So if you're able to cook in your your RV, to do dishes and just bringing all that in, it's just everything just takes so much longer than it should. And plus, like I said, just constant distractions by people, other people who are apparently even needier, asking for help with things. And I don't know, I've always been one to kind of put myself off, as is. And so I'm easily distracted by them, but that's where, like I said, just trying to work on that now and, trying to get back to it. I think after being out of work for, a few years now, it just, that kind of lack of confidence and being sure of being able to go back to work, and are my skills still there, and my reliability, all the things. I just don't want to go back and be a burden, when I go back to work either. So it's hard overcoming the mental hurdle, really.
I can hear in your voice It sounded like you were working professionally somewhere. What was the position that you had?
My last position, I was actually working at a restaurant, and I was bartending. I was part-time management, and then when I left there at the time of the great debacle, I went from that to another restaurant where it's kind of like a demotion in a way. But it was hard to work there, after being at the other place for 4 or 5 years. But before that, I held different positions in corporate, doing admin work. I worked for the Safeway pharmacy department for a while in the office, the pharmacy operations. So I have a wide, range of skills. But just, after being out for a while, it's just wondering, I don't know, nerve-wracking to think, am I going to be competent enough when I go back? So.
I mean, you sound great. Seriously, you sound great. I feel like you can definitely work from home, remotely. Your voice itself is professional. You can pretty much work from anywhere.
I think it's just a discipline, at that point, kind of the discipline and, again, just the routine, right? You have to be, working from home definitely requires a lot more discipline and, lack of distraction and whatnot. So, I've thought about those kind of things, or just something that allows me to work more at my own schedule. Just, I've always been, in a way, overachiever. And so to think that I might be working below what, the quality level I want to put forth is just, it's hard, So, it's, and like I said, it's weird because I know that I come across, everyone says, oh, you seem pretty put together, but that's how I know it's kind of mental illness is just so real, because it shouldn't cripple me at times, but it does.
And have you spoken to somebody about depression? Have you ever done that before?
Yeah, I finally went through the lifelong medical to go and talk to their psychiatrist and just kind of run down my life and everything and pretty much told the exact same things. And she pointed out a lot of different different issues that I don't know. I never would have really thought of it that way. I've always just taken a lot more just responsibility for them. I'm not I wouldn't say I ever blame my parents for my childhood or things like that. But she explained things to me in a way that they made sense. When I grew up, my parents worked a lot of hours, so I was mostly left to fend for my own. And I got in fights with my cousin, or actually I got abused by my cousin in a way, because she basically got me in trouble all the time, for absolutely nothing. And because we lived under my relative's wing, my mom, especially being Asian, they're just very kind of traditionally, we're going to submit, especially when they're our source of housing and everything. So it became, where I felt like, well, I'm just going to get in trouble anyway. And so what she told me was, you probably felt like your mom, as much as she loved you and wanted to, she didn't feel that she could stick up for you because your housing and your livelihood was dependent on that, And so it was just the way she explained things, well, I guess I could see that, but I never thought about it that way, know? And so then I'm used to taking care of my own things. Growing up, I'm not going to ask for help. I'm not going to, even now, I don't actually receive, I have Medi-Cal from I was actually stabbed, out here in Oakland. And so I received Medi-Cal that day. But otherwise, I don't receive any other benefits. I don't get GA. I don't get EBT, anything.
You say you were stabbed. Were you stabbed while you were unhoused out here?
Yeah. I had, it was pretty much right when I moved to Oakland. Okay. I wasn't here yet. Okay. And so I was basically staying at friends' houses and whatnot. And so I was stabbed over at the car wash, the self-car wash.
Yo, I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah. I was really fortunate. I didn't, she missed any vital organs.
Was this just a random attack, or did you get into it with somebody, or what happened? How did this even occur?
I always thought it was a random attack.
Okay.
But then I had 3 friends that were there with me. So 2 of them, they'd walked across the street to go to 7-Eleven. And when they came back and saw this was going on, and so because it was all kind of a blur for me, they said, "You really think it was random?" One of my very good friends. I said, "What? Of course it is. I haven't done anything that would, make us. I deserve to be stabbed." And he said, "But didn't you hear what she said to you? And she said, 'Oh, you keep messing around with her boyfriend, and you're climbing in the window.'" And I said, "The only window I've ever climbed in was mine." Now, this whole triangle of whatnot. It wasn't her boyfriend. It was really my boyfriend, when we separated, and that was an issue. And so,
Wow.
but I think she felt she was entitled to the space at the house.
Yeah.
And so she felt like I wasn't treating her space, even though it was the opposite. So, but that all came about later, and I thought, I didn't see it, For me, it was a random attack.
Wow. So it's something pretty much you didn't know what was happening behind your back.
Right.
And then out of nowhere, boom, this stuff happened. So,
Right.
I mean, in the end of the day, it's not your fault, right?
Right. And I think I feel really actually fortunate that I thought it was a random attack at the time.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of little, different facets to this story, but I had come across this person probably a few different encounters, and so you should go through. But I didn't put it together, until I talked to that friend of mine, and he's and it's funny because I had a video of this other girl exiting my house during one of the previous encounters, and I probably had seen that video multiple times, and one day I just said, "Oh my gosh, that's her," just a brief moment. A profile, I was like, that was her. And I asked my friend, I said, does she look familiar to you? And she said, that's the woman that stabbed you.
Oh, gee.
And I thought, that's what I thought too, and it's just been so weird. But I feel fortunate that I thought it was random at the time, because, I mean, you can't be afraid of just a random attack. I mean, you can be, but then it controls your life, So because I didn't think I had to look over my shoulder all the time. I was mostly able to just move along normally, and not just be paranoid all the time. So,
So since then, since after the stabbing, have you ever thought of your safety, especially being a woman?
All the time. I think I never thought I would be living here on Wood Street. That was like my fear, was to come to Wood Street. I wouldn't come here after dark. And now it's, I'm not comfortable everywhere, but I'm fairly comfortable. I'm here all the time, so you kind of get used to the people around you and whatnot. But I never take it for granted at all. So, especially if I exit the park, I'm very purposeful about where I'm going. I'm sorry.
No worries.
But I'm always very much concerned about it. And again, as safe as you might think you are, there's random things can happen at any time. I was actually staying at the extended stay for when COVID started. Yeah. So I was there for a couple years actually, and there I had a different dog, and I was actually attacked by my own dog about 4 different occasions.
What the world?
So all these scars on my arms.
Yeah. I see it.
Yeah, and
wow.
My leg as well. And so we ended up putting that dog down. It was so much different than these guys. That happened actually right before I moved here.
Oh wow! And this happened in the
hotel.
In the hotel. Oh. So what happened? Was your dog scared at a moment, or was it just super random and just kind of?
I think that dogs, they can have anxiety and whatnot as well, and I never knew that until then. But me and my ex-boyfriend at the time, as we were kind of the decline in our relationship, we would argue a lot. Not like that at all, and he became more and more just really sensitive to it. And so I think that the reason I got attacked more is because I took care of him the most, so really I knew him. I was never afraid of it. And so when he looked, my ex had at the time, he said, Karen, he's gonna attack me, because we're arguing. And I said, no, he's not. But he was really concerned. So I said, fine, I'll just grab the dog. I used to wrestle with him. I didn't have a problem. So I just put my arm around him, never expecting him to bite my arm.
No.
And he did. And I was like, oh my gosh, and so my ex, he pulled him, kind of ripped him off me. Yeah. And that, I just went and ended up going to the hospital and whatnot. And that was obviously the kind of the least of them. And my leg was the second attack actually. And that time again, they were afraid. I had 3 people in the room with me that day. And he just started barking and being really upset. And I said, nobody touch him, because he's actually a very obedient dog most of the time. And I said, don't touch him. And I said, Prince, go inside to go into his kennel. And he was jumping off the bed, but somebody reached and grabbed for him. And I think at that point he kind of, reacted. And as he jumped off the bed, my leg was there. Wow. And he grabbed my leg. And that one, and even after that, someone else, grabbed him at first, and they were just afraid to hold him. So at that point, I jumped up, grabbed the dog, wrestled him to the ground, and I had to restrain him and basically calm him down enough, because now I had his head next to my head, which was really scary. Yeah. And once he was calm, I just said, somebody get me the muzzle, so I was able to muzzle him, and then I just talked to him and told him go to the kennel. And like I said, it's hard to tell people that the dog who attacked me 4 or 5 times. It was actually a really good dog, you know. But
And what kind of dog did you have at the time? The one that actually bit your leg?
Yeah, he was a mix between a red-nosed pit bull and a bull mastiff.
All right.
And so we rescued him from basically a known crack house. So and he was probably bred to fight. But most of the time, he didn't aggress towards other people, except one time when someone approached me in the dark. But even then, he just stood his ground, you know. He didn't go after them.
Yeah.
But so, I mean, I don't know. It was kind of a tragic, you know.
It is.
But when I moved here, my ex actually kept him, and he suffered one more attack by himself when a lady kind of yelled at him in the hallway. And so after that, we had to put him down. I mean, as a responsibility, you know, to everyone else. But yeah, it's so many things have happened in the last few years, you know.
And then as of your ethnic background, you can just tell me about your ethnic background.
I'm Chinese and Portuguese.
Okay.
I was actually the first one born here. My older siblings were born in Macau, which is China. And yeah, so.
And so who was Portuguese? Was it your dad or mom?
My dad.
Okay.
And I would say he was actually like 3/4 Portuguese and 1/4 Chinese.
Yeah.
And then my mom was full Chinese.
Okay.
Hey, settle down.
You were only raised on your Chinese side?
Yeah, I'd say for the most part. I grew up with my mom's side of the family. They grew flowers growing up. So we had plenty of like land, you know, greenhouses, and I kind of grew up in a little rural, you know, area.
And where were you actually coming from? Like as of before you got here in Oakland, where were you living?
I spent probably I grew up in San Jose. San Jose, like near Milpitas.
Yeah.
And then I got married just about right out of high school. And so I lived in the East Bay, but usually like Hayward. And then I went to the Tri-Valley, so Dublin, Pleasanton, San Ramon. I was around there.
Okay.
For most of my adulthood. And it was just after my divorce when I ended up over here. So.
And if you have a good word for the people that are unhoused, what's something positive that you could tell them?
You know, I always think that even no matter how much or how ugly it kind of looks, or, you know, around you and all the things going on, I think that if you look, you can find, you know, good. And I was like, there's plenty of beauty to be had, you know what I mean, and seen. You just gotta learn to appreciate those things, you know. As much as I've had like a kind of a rough time the last few years, I've met some really great, amazing people. You know, one of the blessings of, you know, not being employed and whatnot was that I have plenty of time that I can spend with people and kind of build, you know, just relationships and learn about other people as well. And, you know, not to have, in a way, not the pressures of having to pay rent and whatnot, you know, and just be able to just, I don't know, uplift people. I'm, you know, I'm a nurturer by nature. So I just, I like to go to take care of people and just make everyone feel, you know, like worthy and, I don't know.
Sure.